So we're going to talk about AI. I hear it's not the first time you're going to hear about AI, so bear with us. We might switch to open banking if it gets too redundant. With us, I changed the script last minute in the lounge. So we're each going to introduce ourselves with our name, title, and how we use AI in an original way in our personal life. So I'm going to start. Thierry Bélangerois, partner at EY. I now use it to choose wine at restaurants.
Michael Pelosi, country manager at Cohere. You just met me. They tried to get I have an identical twin brother who works at Anthropic, and he runs financial services, but they couldn't get him. He was busy, so they just had me do the second panel as well. So bear with me. I'll try to use different anecdotes, but I will share how I use it. I'm a terrible chef and cook. And so usually there's only a few items in the fridge because I don't buy lots of groceries either. So I always challenge AI to say, this is what I got. What can I make for my wife and 2 kids? And it tells me what to make. I still fail at making it. So it gives me some direction. Nice to be back.
Hi, I'm Julie Levesque, Head of Technology and Operations for National Bank. The last time I used it, I think, is to counter argument with my plumber. And ChatGPT won. I'm proud to say.
Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Daniel Grassi. I'm the Executive Vice President of Technology at Desjardins. Last time I used the technology is with my little ones. I'm passing secondary 3 math all over again and trying to help her out with some ChatGPT, and also recently built up my itinerary for my recent trip to Italy, so it did everything for me.
Thank you. So today we'll try to extract as much as possible without disclosing corporate secret, how these leaders think about AI and their strategy. First question, you need to pick your team. So explain to us, what's the sense of urgency in investing and defining an AI roadmap? And short term, where do you see the biggest benefits? And that's where you pick your team. Grow, optimize, or protect? I'm going to let you interpret those words the way you want. Maybe we'll go in that order there. Daniel, do you want to kick us off?
So there's not one day that goes by where I don't have a team member or someone from the board that's talking about AI and how we're going to use it within our organization. So is there a sense of urgency? Absolutely. The next question was around, which team are we in?
Yeah.
Within Desjardins, definitely the optimized team for 2 specific reasons. Our members and clients are their needs are changing and they're telling us, right, on how they'd like to be served. So we're optimizing our processes and using the re-engineering and capabilities of AI to make sure that we can actually service them better and how they'd like to be serviced quicker with either any large language model. And the second element is on the why is really around the people, right? Our employees are the folks that are having the conversations with our members and clients. And AI is there around the re-engineering of those processes and how we can actually deliver better service and value for the customers. And again, and the way we use this is around a thoughtful but prudent approach to AI. It's not just launching the next shiny thing in the market.
Thanks.
I would say perhaps what we need to balance is the FOMO effect.
Yeah.
And I think that's the balance that all of us need to do on a daily basis. We have to act. We have to do something. We cannot wait. But I also think that there's a lot of organizations that run deep, fast, and fail. So I think that's, to your point, there's a lot of board, my brother-in-law, my aunt, everybody has an opinion on how they use AI. So I think it's the balance of it all but we need to take action and we need to move forward. I'm going to be cheeky. For sure, in financial institution, protect is the table stake. So I'm going to assume that is there. So I'm going to use growth. I think it's a huge lever of growth. Allows you to optimize, obviously, your costs, but really tremendous enabler for growth. And for some of you that saw Laurent, my boss yesterday, that's top of mind for us. So that's definitely something that we're considering and looking into.
So I have to take protect?
No. This one you can pick the same team.
I kind of use it. Thank you.
And I'll take a slightly different approach. Given at Cohere, we're the LLM AI company helping financial institutions, among other companies, use it. I'll touch on all three in 10 seconds each. But grow is a lot of how the organizations are thinking about where this is going to take them from a growth standpoint and what they're planting today, how it's going to generate net new growth for the business tomorrow. The optimize is what are we currently doing that can be relatively easily optimized, whether that's taking out some of the manual process that isn't no longer required, but can have a meaningful impact on the business in terms of just making it more efficient. And then protect, I'll look at it a little differently, is how do we protect the current customers that are with us to ensure that their experience is a good one and that we're doing what's required to make them want to continue to bank with us, to work with us. An example I'll use is last year we paid off our mortgage at TD, and it was a big thing for my wife and I.
Perhaps because the rate was really high, would have been a national.
I wish I knew, Julie, beforehand.
You know, for next one.
For the next one, it was too high, so we paid it off. And the reason I share that example is because a perfect example of protecting me and my wife as TD clients is that would have been a great use case for AI to recognize the client has done something really pretty meaningful in their financial journey. And TD, unfortunately, and they're a partner of Cohere, so I'm not going to be too hard on them, but they dropped the ball there and there was no message at all. And so that's a great example of where AI can protect the current customer relationship, and that would have been a great use case to use AI to recognize that one of their clients has done something very meaningful in their life. Even though they no longer make money off of me, I'm still a customer. And that would have been a great example of AI to say, hey, congratulations. And by the way, your mortgage payment was X. Here's now where you can put that money in investments, et cetera. Lots of ways to protect the experience as well.
Thanks for giving us a voice for protect. That's very generous of you. Maybe follow-up question, an example of how your organization used AI for the team that you picked. Maybe Danielle for optimize?
Absolutely. So I can give you a great example. We have our call center business, which is called Accéder. Receive a fairly large amount of calls per year, a healthy number over 15 million. And we have a team of folks that are actually listening to these calls in terms of quality, and where we've utilized AI and trained machines to ensure that we can do quality inspection of these calls, and now we can do over 1 million live, and where humans, a specific number of humans, were actually doing that, and they were doing about 8,000 in total when it was a human. Now we can do 1 million live after the conversations. So this is helping our business adapt and adjust to the customer contacts that are and contact calls that are actually coming into our call centers.
Very good.
We use it on many use cases and many levers. Obviously, on the capital market side, we've been using it for numerous years, I would say over 10 years, that allowed us really to grow that business. On the high-frequency trading as well, to ingest tons and tons of data and to be able to see trends has been something that we've been leader in the market on. So that's definitely on that front. There's also all the enablers that we deploy to our employees to give them more time to spend on growing the business and developing and advice to customers. So that we've done a lot as well. It also has helped us from a volume point of view, not increase the number necessarily of employees, but to make sure that we could get follower growth and make sure that we have enough and we provide the right service to our customer. We also have a lot of models that are looking to, a little bit similar to your example, of behavior that the customer suddenly does a life-changing event. How is that? Why? With combination of a lot of information to provide insight to the advisors and provide the right advice to the customer. So there's many, many ways of doing that. I think that we are at the, I would say, at the higher, starting to be at the higher curve, but there's many more scenarios that we're looking into and that we could leverage, definitely.
The capital market example is a good reminder that actually ChatGPT made AI sexy again, but financial services institutions have been using AI for quite some time.
It's been around for a while.
Okay, now the next game is, now that you pick your team, there's a first draft. You're gonna draft your success criteria.
Demi-dove.
You're gonna
That's
draft,
a Montreal Canadian joke. Sorry, I don't
Go
think
Habs. Go Habs.
you're gonna draft your success criteria. So you can draft anything. I'm gonna give you an example: talent, data, architecture and technology, governance and controls, and then you can draft any other free agent out there. Julie, you're going to start, so you cannot draft the same player once Julie has. And then you need to explain the rationale why.
talent wins the battle all the time. So you need to have the right talent, you need to have the right curiosity, you need to have the people that are really willing to learn and embrace the new technology. I think that's the main driver. All of these attributes, an algorithm doesn't do that, like empathy, curiosity. An algorithm doesn't have that. So there's a human aspect to AI that is really important. And I think if you have the right talent, you have the right team to win the battle. And obviously, you need technology, you need everything else that you mentioned. I cannot draft a second player, yes?
Too many players.
Okay, I'll keep with talent.
But on talent, with AI and how Gen AI, agentic, make us think differently about the nature of the work in the future, how do you rethink talent and picking the best talent?
It's not an easy question to answer. Obviously, you need to have the technical skills at some point, but technical skills on its own without the willingness to learn, to look at things differently, is a bigger challenge that I find. Obviously, there's always going to be some requirement of having really in-depth vertical knowledge and technical skills. But I also think there's a balance between the two. And we've seen it all, like in deployment of specifically on generative AI, you need to have people that are more geared towards experience and understanding the behavior, and that to me is quite important. So it's a combination of the two. But I think the people that are on the fence, even from an adoption point of view, and they're looking at this and say, oh, this is gonna, my job might be disappearing, I don't know what's gonna happen to me. That posture is the biggest challenge that we run into, because as soon as you start embracing it, you see the benefits of using it and even being more performant. So I think it's a balance that we're trying to do and we're continuing to do, but I think there's a generation that are already using it. Yeah. So that's the wake-up call that I think some of the team need to have, is that there's a lot of people that know how to use it and use it on a daily basis in their personal life. So they already have an advantage on you. So you need to embrace and pick it up quickly.
Do you think, you said earlier, it was interesting that AI doesn't replace the empathy and some of the more emotional intelligence that do you think there's going to be a bigger emphasis with talent on those skills?
Definitely.
Okay, second pick.
I can't pick talent. Last time I checked, I haven't found any recipe for AI that doesn't have talent in it, but if I have to pick one, I'd probably pick data. I'll give an analogy here. If AI is the equivalent of an electric car, the fuel that propels this electric car is going to be data and AI. So I definitely, like Julie, if it's not talent, you definitely need the talent, but you also need the data behind the system if you want any computational model, et cetera. And we tend to underestimate data, right? So, and when I mean data, what do I mean by data? Because it's a large term. One, you need access to it. Two, you need to make sure that it's, you can quantify it. Third, I think you have to make sure that it meets some level of, or some standard of quality in terms of, yes, it's representative of the data set I want to have. So I definitely say data with respect to, if you can't pick talent to build this recipe, without data, the car is not moving. Your AI machine is not moving at all.
Yeah.
You can't run any computational model without any clean data behind it.
Yeah. Jessica yesterday was saying the same when at the dinner, that if you don't digitalize, you don't have the data. It's very hard to get the quick wins from AI. Maybe you can share how your institution's thinking about data.
The first step is actually trying to understand or grappling, we talked about talent and understand. So everyone understands this notion of data,
Yep.
But how do we go from 30 feet in the air or 30,000 feet in the air and actually dig down and understand what type of data is actually required? This is where our mindset is at. So within our organization, we have multiple business units, and those business units, we have key leaders in there, which are trying to understand what is the key data that we need from these business units, with things in mind such as, hey, are we making sure that the protection is around it? Are we making sure that we're gathering that data? And then you also need to make sure that it's meeting some type of criteria around the quality. So how we're thinking about that is actually going to our primes and colleagues in every single business unit and making sure that they understand, firstly, what data is important, and then we're going to go through that entire technological process of saying, hey, how do we ingest? How do we get this into a system where we can create value afterwards?
Thanks. Third pick.
Well, you set me up nicely because I'll say technology, not just technology, Cohere technology. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to promote Cohere too much here, and I won't actually use technology. It's too easy. But yes, it's important. I don't mean the technology is easy. I mean using this on the panel would be a little too easy. What I will say, what I see a lot of, and maybe it's not a player perhaps as we're talking about drafting, but is this idea of foresight, of the idea of thinking of how will this work a year from now? And let me give you an example. I think it was MIT that came out with this paper that I'm sure some of you saw, that 95% of pilots fail in enterprise. Whether they embellished, I'm not sure, but still, there's some credibility behind it. And why that doesn't surprise me too much is because it's very easy to get a team of 20 people with some data that's not sensitive and do something cool with AI. Oh, look, we did something cool. That part is easy. What a lot of organizations haven't done is said, will this work with 50,000 employees? Will our risk team accept this? Will our compliance team accept this? Will our legal team accept this? And so it's not the sexiest part of AI, but it's critical because without it, nothing will happen. I'm currently in the process, as I mentioned, paid off the mortgage, we're moving. And we're renovating our new home. The fun part is the renovation, is building new things, this new kitchen and, a new bathroom, whatever. The not fun part, but is critically important, is the permit. We'll call the legal compliance, the risk, that's the permit. Can you do this or not? And often organizations have gotten really excited by these POCs. They go, time to roll it out. And they'll see a few things. One, legal goes, absolutely not, that data is too sensitive, it can't leave our environment. Or cost. A POC is nice and cheap, you're only using 20 people. Have you thought about if 8 million customers are using your product that has AI baked into it, how much that's going to cost from a hardware standpoint, from a model consumption standpoint? It's not like this, it's like this. And so I'll use foresight, this idea of thinking, how is this going to work here in maybe a small POC proof of concept? But more importantly, how can we set this up to make sure that we'll get the permit to have it live throughout the whole organization, and then we'll control costs where a CFO isn't going to say, what are you talking about?
And I think on that, you bring a really good point, and you mentioned it in the panel before, just before us with Catherine and yourself, is that specifically in financial institution, we're highly regulated. And there's a lot of companies that run, they do, to your point, they proof it out, they say, oh, this is great, but they didn't put in place the right framework, the right approach to do it, to deployment. And that's where most of the challenges are being run into. Or you deploy something and then you roll it back because, oh, we forgot this and we forgot that. So I think having I would say, robust framework put in place that includes privacy, risk, legal, security, data, cyber, is the right key at the start. And then you evolve and you learn along the way. But if you don't do that and you run full speed, you're going to hit a wall.
Correct.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Great analogy, except I'm not sure I share that the fun part is the renovation.
Touche.
All right, so let's switch gear a little bit. One of the question, and with an S, because it's a constant question that financial institutions have to face when they think about their AI roadmap is the traditional, what we used to think about, the question we used to ask ourselves with ERP investment is the build versus buy. And in the case of AI, there's probably 3 dimensions if I simplify it. You can build your own large language model and really invest in the science of it. You can leverage large language model from tech companies, but build your own use cases. Or now you can buy softwares that are run your call centers, your CRMs that have use cases embedded with them. We're not going to make this a game or a draft because I think it's a question that deserves a more nuanced answer here. But how does your organization think about these choices, about a strategy, when to do what, and what are the pros and cons that you see and the experience you had? And this time we'll start with Michael. I think you're already biased towards one of the
well, yeah,
the option.
Well, yes and no, and so I'll give a slight flavor on each. Our co-founder and CEO, his name is Aidan Gomez. He was one of the authors of this paper called Transformer: Attention is All You Need. And the transformer is the T in GPT. And he published this in 2017, and there's a, pun intended, transformational paper. From there, he partnered up with a gentleman named Nick Frost, who was employee number 1 under Jeffrey Hinton at Google Brain. Jeffrey Hinton is considered by many the godfather of artificial intelligence. And there they also connected with Ivan Zhang, who's the 3rd co-founder of Cohere, who is also at UFT. Together they built and created a team to build the large language model itself, purely for enterprise use case. The reason I share that is because that takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. And that's why there's only a handful of players globally that build the models. And you might say, well, Mike, what do you mean? It takes time and resources. Hundreds of millions of dollars in just computers, essentially, just hardware to run and train these models. And for those of you who aren't as well-versed with how these models are trained, I'm not going to go into detail because I don't know all the details, but high level, you're essentially soaking up all of the publicly available information, period, which is a lot, primarily from the internet, and training a model to understand that so it can be used in the way we're using it today. The reason I share that is very few people want to do that anymore. There's 5, 6, 7, there's a number of large language models now, OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic, Mistral, DeepSeek, etc. So most folks don't do that because it's very intense resource-wise, time-wise, and the models, as much as I'd love to say Cohere's is the best, the others suck, they're all very good. So the models are kind of been built. Now the phase 2 is, okay, fine, the models are built, I'm not going to build my own. How can I build something unique within the organization? That does require a lot of talent. That is still difficult. But why I like that is you can customize a lot of what's unique to your business. A lot of FIs, a lot of telcos, retailers, manufacturing, they want something that just works out of the box. And a lot of the times you need customization to better understand how it's going to work within your organization. So there are off-the-shelf solutions that will be called kind of number 3 that can meet certain use cases within your companies. But we see them, a lot of success is that middle ground of how do you have something that's, yes, using large language models, but building something and or maybe some buy, but it's customized for your organization. That's really, really important because every company is going to be unique, and having the talent and the partners to help you weave this through your organization in a unique way is going to be really important, because otherwise you're going to use a model that all your other competitors have, an out-of-the-box solution, and it'll be tough to create meaningful competitive differentiation. So that's just a take on all 3.
Thanks. Julie, do you want to?
I think you summarized it well. I think it's a question, and like any decisions that we make at National Bank is based on, should we buy, should we build? If it's commodity or mass market, we buy. So Copilot, we don't do our own. We use the out-of-the-box capabilities that do exist. GitHub, Copilot, same thing. When it's required a competitive advantage, then we use what we call shape. So we use what exists, the models that currently exist, we adapt to what we're trying to do, and that gives us the growth capability. And really, to your point, makes a difference in the market. Otherwise, we're all doing the same thing. Everybody's using Salesforce, no offense. But it's the data that you use and how you use it that makes it specific to your need and allows you. So it's the same with the models. If you use out of the box these models, you're going to get this somehow similar type of results than your competitor. So I think it's that decision that you need to make. And again, it's no different from an AI point of view than for any solution. And perhaps I'll say something controversial. My team, I see a few of those in the room. I've said it many times. To me, an AI strategy, I've said to my board, you never asked for a Java strategy, so why are you asking for AI? We're trying to solve a business problem. So I think that's always that. Okay, what problem are you trying to solve? What is the best way to fix that problem? And then again, it could be buying an off-the-shelf solution or buying a model that already exists that has been, to your point, there's dollars and millions of dollars that have been invested in those, leveraging that, adapting it to our own system. So I think that's the approach that we're using.
Look, I don't think I'm going to add to everything that the team just said because I'm totally in agreement. I don't think it's a question of buy versus build. I think it's a question of and. It's not a question of or, one or the other, firstly. Similar to what Julie just mentioned, I tend to agree 150,000%. At the end of the day, we tend to throw technology as the solution, but we're not very clear on the clarity around what is the problem we're trying to resolve. That being said, buy or build, and I think, I don't know, for the folks that know Ringo Starr and the Beatles, I think they said it best. Sometimes we get a bit of help from our friends. I think we need a little bit of help from our friends in the buy space because we're not going to necessarily repeat and rebuild stuff that has already been built for us, and we're going to shape, as Julie just mentioned, within our own environments. But there's a couple of criteria in mind. Like, for example, one, do we have the skill set or talent to actually build? After we know what the problem is. Two is, do we actually know our financials? Do we have enough money to build versus buy? And what are the pros and cons? And lastly, I'd say, do we need to integrate? And we live in environments, especially in, I don't know about your environment, Julie, but I tend to think that it's probably very similar to Desjardins, but they're highly complex environments, which you then have to think, can we integrate? And build or buy comes into question when you have to decide on building or buying for, the problem we're trying to resolve. So it's an and, not an or.
That makes sense. I think, Julie, you mentioned, when there's a competitive advantage, when you want to differentiate, you're leaning towards build. The trade-off is time to market, right?
Yes.
Do you think you have to change, it might go back to talent, but how you organize yourself to meet that time to market so that the build doesn't become a disadvantage?
I think definitely, and I think the agentic AI piece is going to change tremendously how organizations are done and the operating model within each one of the organization. I think that's definitely a disturbance within our environment, because it's going to change everything how we do things. So I think definitely there is. I think in any transformation, you need to test, learn, and the test, learn, and refine speech. You need to do that, because at scale, transforming everybody at the same time is really difficult, and it's an uphill battle, I would say. And to your point, trying to do that with every team slows you down. So you need to have teams that are more nimble, are able to test things out in an environment, and you'll be able to test it out and deploy. And then you say, okay, that worked. What did we learn from that? Then scale it to another team and grow. I think that's probably the best approach. We've tried. We did about a year ago, we deployed something, and we were convinced this was like phenomenal. And we're like, okay, this is good. And then we deployed it, and then after like 2-3 weeks, nobody was using it. And then we realized that we did train the end user, but we didn't spend enough time on, because they kept saying, well, the answer is wrong. And it's not the answer is wrong, it's your question, it's your prompting that needs to be adjusted. So I think once we did that, but if we had started with the full-blown deployment in the network, it would have been chaos. And it would have been chaos, but it would have been a really uphill battle from an adoption point of view, because our tolerance is really low on errors. And that's something that we need to be mindful of. And one of the examples we were using is that if you go in Silicon Valley, you see these self-driving car taxis, and everybody's like, oh, I don't know if I want to go in there. Their rate of accident is lower than if a human was driving. But as soon as there's an accident, it's in the paper. Because our tolerance is, you see that? I would never do that. So it's the same thing on AI adoption. Our employees, our clients are going to go through the same adoption behavior. So we need to be really mindful.
Thanks. And Danielle, I'm going to make you react to another thing Julie said.
My God. I'm going to drink.
You need to be more careful.
It's water.
Do you need an AI strategy, or is it just like Java and the next generation of engineers?
I'm exaggerating.
I know.
You get my point.
But do you think that the next generation of engineers are going to come with, they're going to use AI as part of their toolkit, and it's going to naturally transform the organization? How do you see that?
I think you need to point to, we need to be directionally vectored into some type of direction. Do you absolutely need an AI strategy? I think because it's fairly nascent. Before 3 years ago, before ChatGPT, we didn't really think about this in detail. Now, do you need to be surgical in terms of what we can do? There's so much out there that if you don't know, if you're not pinpointing the problem you're trying to resolve, I think
the opportunity.
I think you're going to peanut butter spread a little bit too much within any organization, my opinion, Thierry. So I think you need to have a strategy, or at least a direction, and an ultimate goal. Without it, I really think we may get lost in the technology. And you're going to focus on technology versus the problems or opportunities, my opinion.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying as well, right? You're solving a business problem. You're not just
or creating an opportunity
Absolutely.
of growth, but it needs to come from that.
All right, back to our draft.
No.
Last one. We talked about it a little bit, so we'll try to pick a player that we didn't talk about. We'll pick risk now. If you have to address one risk, you're only allowed to mitigate one of the risks associated with AI. Which one would it be? I've got a few examples. There's data security, there's the bias or fairness of AI, the explainability of the model or the black box that AI can bring, cyber risk, others, Who picked first last time? Julie, you picked
No,
first.
I was last.
So you're going to be last this time. Maybe Danielle, you pick first, and then
Right.
Michael.
Largest risk. I'd say it was Julie's first ingredient for success is talent, but I think talent is also potentially our largest risk. If I think about the majority of our projects that fail, 70% of the projects don't fail because of the inherent technology behind the project.
Yep.
It typically fails because of, and I don't want to say the humans, but the actual people behind this project. And the why is not necessarily their fault, is because did we spend enough time understanding the problem? Did we understand the significance of the change management or the purpose of what we're doing? So I suspect our biggest risk is going to be our talent and not necessarily following their adoption into what we're trying to accomplish. Largest risk.
Do you think a financial institution, like an organization like yours, is able to compete on the talent side against, the big techs, the Google, the Amazon, the Microsoft, or even the smaller players in terms of attracting the best talent?
That's a loaded. Was it a question for me? Yeah, loaded question.
It's a loaded question.
Now
It's a
she's
very
happy
loaded
she's last.
question.
Yeah, that being said, I think the answer is yes. I saw a couple of years ago where it was very difficult for us to get data scientists, et cetera, et cetera. This noise has actually come down significantly.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's becoming normalized. The technology is removing some of the complexity around the models. So do I think we can actually compete? The answer is yes. That being said, where are we competing is around our purpose.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of our organization, and can they buy into that purpose and into the why that we're doing things? So for us, the purpose of being, the first in everyone's hearts from a financial banking perspective, I think, and giving back to our societies, actually gives us a competitive advantage in terms of trying to get talent. And, we have folks knocking at our door to say, hey, we believe in that purpose. Not necessarily because of the interesting work. We all have interesting work within our organizations.
But you're right, and in some sense, when we think about what you both said earlier, and it's about the business problem you're trying to solve or the opportunity, by joining the organization that actually solved the business problem, you're closer to the outcome, the ultimate outcome, right? So, okay, second pick, Michael.
Okay, so risk. Second pick, risk.
And you talked about governance earlier, so you can't pick the same player for risk.
No governance. I actually agree with Daniel. I think talent and adoption and getting the right folks and the right mindset is number one, but I know I have to give something a little more creative and unique, given that Daniel picked it already. So it's something that we see a fair bit of, and I want to call risk mitigation, because we haven't seen anything catastrophic happen yet. But one of the things, and this is going to be my Cohere plug, so bear with me. One of the things that Cohere focuses on, as I mentioned earlier, is enterprise deployment. We don't have an application for consumer stuff. And one of the things that regulated enterprise cares a lot about, especially in banking, is where their data is living. And you'll hear sovereign. I'm surprised, by the way, I haven't heard sovereign AI a million times since I've been here. But sovereign, sovereign, sovereign. Let's keep it here. The geopolitical climate is changing, et cetera. And what I think is going to be important, and it's something that we focus on, is how can we get the technology to you? And what I mean by that is have it in your environment, whether that's on premise, if you have physical hardware and a virtual private cloud. And the reason that we think that's super important is to unlock a lot of the value of what we've talked about over the past few panels, and apologies again, you've had to bear with me for two, so thank you, is using sensitive data. That's when we can really start to unlock a lot of value. And one of the risks, if you're using whether it's a hyperscaler or another environment that might be based in the US, one of the risks that could arise is, let's take the tariff example. If they decided to heavily tariff AI and or the large tech companies in the use of AI, these could be risks that could really put Canada in trouble, at least from an expense standpoint. So a lot of what we've seen to help mitigate that is the more you can control, we believe, the better. And that's not only keeping the data in your environment, keeping the model in your environment, because although we're big fans of all the big tech players, we do think that if the geopolitical climate or if there's any additional instability, it can put you at a meaningful risk if all of your tech and data needs are dependent on another country or market. So that's something else to think about.
Thanks.
I would use your input and your input. I think that one of the risks, specifically for financial institution, is our culture. We are risk adverse at core. So that's our business. And I think the change of pace and how we measure and take measured risk and understand those risks is a challenge. And I think that's something that we need to adapt quickly. Obviously, without putting at risk the organization, making sure that we understand the decision and the decision are intended and understand the risk that we're taking. So I would say that's perhaps I see the first slow adoption and slow deployment is on that, and the number of meetings we need to have to convince everyone that this is risk. There's no cyber, there's no privacy, there's no all of that. So I think that's potentially, and the pace of adoption, that's also your culture that enables that or slows it down. Yep. So I think that's one of the key items that you need to, in any transformation, and this is one, you need to have a strong change management view of this, and not only view, but action and mindfulness around. Otherwise, you're going to be as slow as the slowest one, the slowest group in your organization. So I think that's a key item that you need to always have on your radar.
And do you think, because it's your turn to get a loaded question, but do you think financial institutions have enough incentive to address the risk aversion culture?
For sure. For sure, because if we look at the pace of which startups and fintechs are deploying capabilities, if we don't, we'll never be as fast as them, but we have to be faster than what we are now. So it's not a choice. We have to.
And can I just add to that? Because I think that's really important. And an analogy that I use is, I already alluded earlier that I'm a Wealthsimple customer, and I've said to other executives at large banks, I go, I need you to convince me why my 5-year-old son, when he's older, I'm not going to have him sign up for Wealthsimple. Because of how fast they adapt. Because of the technology, the experience. The analogy I often use is they are Uber. A lot of the big banks are taxi. There's a very big gap between the experience. And so to your point, the incentive needs to be there, because it's not so much today and a customer who is fine with their current banking and they've been doing it for 30 years. It's the next generation. And they just expect that experience to be fundamentally different. So I do completely agree with you that resting is fine if you don't necessarily care about what the business is going to look like in 5 to 10 years, but it's going to be a big challenge if you don't adapt quickly.
Danielle, I see you nodding, I think.
I'm in agreement. I mean, you can't rest. And if you rest, your clients are just telling you through these descriptions of your services that you have to change. So, I agree.
Thank you very much. I see 30 seconds. I don't know if we have time to take questions from the audience. That's something I don't see my...
In 20 seconds? No.
That was a no. That was a no.
No questions for you today. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.